Somewhere around week 3, something quietly turns against you, and almost nobody sees it coming. You started strong, new shoes, a fresh plan, maybe a cardio class that left you drenched and proud. Week 1 felt like motivation finally sticking. Week 2 felt even better, productive, disciplined, like you were finally becoming the version of yourself you'd been promising to become. Then week 3 arrives, and something shifts. The soreness in your knees isn't the good kind anymore. It's deeper, duller, the kind that doesn't fade with stretching. Sleep gets strange. You wake up tired even after 8 full hours, like your body never actually powered down. Your resting heart rate creeps up and stays up, refusing to settle back where it used to sit. And here's the trap. Almost everyone reads these signs as not enough discipline, not enough intensity, not enough pushing. So they push harder. But what if the problem was never effort at all? What if, after a certain point in life, the issue isn't how hard you're working, it's what your body is quietly being asked to tolerate underneath all that effort? Let me ask you something a little uncomfortable, something most people never stop to consider mid-workout. If you could pause time right now, mid-sprint, heart pounding, sweat dripping, and look inside your blood vessels, would you see a system that's trained or one that's quietly, invisibly strained? Because here's the unsettling truth cardiologists rarely say out loud in a way the public hears. Feeling strong and being protected are not the same thing. You can be breathless, soaked in sweat, technically crushing your workout, while your arteries are working overtime under a completely different kind of pressure than you realize. Most of us assume the math is simple. Harder workout equals stronger heart equals better protection. More output, more benefit. Like exercise is a straightforward deposit into a health savings account. But cardiologists watching patients over decades, especially past 40, keep noticing something that contradicts that entire assumption. Running and high-intensity training are phenomenal for building performance, speed, power, endurance, the numbers on a fitness watch. But protecting your heart long-term depends on something almost nobody talks about. Not how much output your heart can produce under pressure, but how much daily load it's forced to tolerate just to keep you alive through an ordinary day. Stay with this idea, because it's the part cardiac rehab specialists understand deeply and the rest of us almost never hear. We're not talking about calories burned. We're not talking about fitness scores or personal records. We're talking about something quieter and far more consequential. The biological stress load sitting on your cardiovascular system hour after hour, day after day. Yes, your heart matters enormously, but there's something that matters even more. The system that decides how hard your heart has to work with every single beat. Your autonomic nervous system, the tone of your blood vessels. These are the invisible hands controlling whether each heartbeat meets cooperation or resistance. Think of it like this. If your heart is the pump, your arteries are the plumbing. Hard cardio forces the pump to perform again and again under pressure. Walking, on the other hand, quietly rebuilds the plumbing. And for a huge number of people past 40, fixing the plumbing does more to protect the pump than pushing that pump ever could. To really understand why this matters, we need a little perspective. Not fear, just clarity. As you pass 40, your heart muscle itself usually stays perfectly capable. What actually changes is the environment surrounding it. Your arteries slowly begin losing some of their elasticity. Not suddenly, not dramatically, just gradually. They stop responding as easily to each pulse of blood moving through them. Your resting blood pressure might drift upward, even if you're otherwise healthy, even if nothing feels wrong. And because the shift happens so slowly, almost nobody notices until it's already established. Here's where it gets genuinely fascinating. Lining every blood vessel in your body is a paper-thin layer of cells called the endothelium, and it is far from passive. This layer is constantly sensing pressure, sensing movement, deciding in real time whether a vessel should widen or tighten. One of its most powerful tools is a molecule called nitric oxide, which tells vessels to relax and open up. When that signal fires often, blood flows with less resistance, and your heart barely has to work for it. When that signal goes quiet, vessels stay more constricted, and every single heartbeat has to push harder just to move the same amount of blood. And research has shown something the body does with almost everything. If endothelial responsiveness isn't regularly stimulated, it declines with age. The body is ruthlessly efficient. It keeps what gets used. It lets go of what gets ignored. Here's the twist. Hard cardio does stimulate these vessels, but often through abrupt, jarring pressure spikes, like flooring the gas pedal over and over. Walking stimulates the exact same vessels, but gently, repeatedly, rhythmically. And that gentler pattern appears to preserve responsiveness far more consistently over time. There's a second shift happening too, one tied to recovery. After 40, once your body experiences something stressful or intensely exertional, your sympathetic nervous system, your built-in fight or flight switch, tends to stay flipped on longer than it used to. Adrenaline lingers, cortisol lingers, sleep gets lighter. Your body stays braced for action long after the action has actually ended. Now add intense cardio into a system that's already slow to power down. You're layering another strong activation signal onto a body that hasn't finished clearing the last one. Walking does something almost opposite. It activates circulation without triggering that sense of urgency. Your nervous system ramps up blood flow, but it never fully tips into fight or flight. Instead, it practices something far more valuable, balancing effort with recovery in real time over and over. Which brings us to the real idea sitting underneath all of this. Heart health after 40 has less to do with how high your heart rate can climb, and everything to do with how smoothly it can rise and fall. A heart constantly pushed toward its maximum isn't automatically a protected heart. A heart supported by responsive vessels and steady regulation, that's the one quietly winning long term. And it starts before you even feel like you're doing anything at all. The moment a walk begins, protection starts building before you feel exertion. Your body starts lowering resistance in advance, organizing blood flow proactively, so your heart never has to suddenly surge to catch up. Which brings us to the first few steps, because what happens there is almost too subtle to notice, and that's exactly the point. From the outside, the first steps of a walk look like nothing. Your pace is slow. Your breathing is basically unchanged. Your muscles haven't even warmed up yet. But inside your body, something coordinated and immediate is already unfolding, completely without your awareness. Sensors buried in your feet and joints detect the rhythmic pressure of each step and fire signals up through your spinal cord to your brainstem, instantly. Before your muscles have even asked for extra oxygen, your nervous system has already begun adjusting your circulation in anticipation. This is the distinction that changes everything. Walking is pre-regulated movement. Your body prepares for the demand before the demand arrives. Hard cardio works the opposite way. It's reactive. The demand spikes fast, and your heart has to scramble to supply blood under sudden pressure.
As the walk continues, your autonomic nervous system quietly recalibrates. Your heart rate climbs, but only modestly. Meanwhile, small arteries throughout your legs begin to widen. Blood flow increases smoothly, not suddenly, not violently, just smoothly, like a door easing open instead of being kicked in. The lining of those vessels senses the steady, rhythmic movement of blood across its surface and starts releasing relaxing signals in response. Resistance drops just enough to support the movement without ever tipping into strain. This is where a concept called afterload becomes essential to understand. Afterload is the pressure your heart has to push against every single time it contracts. When your vessels are stiff or constricted, your heart works harder with every single beat, thousands of times a day, day after day, year after year. But when your vessels are relaxed and responsive, each contraction moves blood with far less effort. During a walk, resistance drops early, which means your heart never has to generate a forceful, urgent surge just to keep up. Compare that to intense exercise, where heart rate spikes fast and pressure follows right behind it. Your heart is fully capable of handling this, but frequent surges, especially after 40, can quietly accumulate into cumulative load if your recovery systems have slowed down. Walking flips the entire equation. It decreases afterload while the activity is still happening. Your heart is active, but it isn't pressured. This is the first real protective effect, and it's almost invisible if you're not looking for it. The exercise is happening, circulation is increasing, and yet the actual mechanical stress on each individual heartbeat may be lower than what you experience during an ordinary stressful day at work. Your body, in this moment, experiences movement as cooperation, not demand. Walking doesn't just exercise your heart, it actively reduces the force your heart has to push against beat after beat after beat. For so many adults past 40, the real issue was never a weak heart muscle. It's persistent, quiet background pressure sitting in the vascular system, pressure that's been building for years without a single obvious symptom. By lowering resistance early in the activity, walking essentially trains your entire system to favor smooth circulation as its default setting. And within just 2 minutes, your heart, your nerves, and your vessels are already operating differently than they were before you stepped outside. The change is subtle, invisible, easy to dismiss, but it's already setting the stage for what happens next. By the 3rd minute, your body stops adjusting and starts settling into rhythm. Your breathing, slightly uneven when you started, becomes steady and predictable. Your diaphragm finds a natural pattern, each inhale followed by a longer, calmer exhale. And this breathing pattern matters more than it seems, because it's directly communicating with your vagus nerve, one of the central regulators of your parasympathetic nervous system, your body's built-in rest and recover switch. As that system activates more fully, your body reinterprets the entire situation. It stops reading the movement as a threat and starts reading it as controlled, manageable effort. Your heart rate rises, but it stops climbing aggressively. Your blood pressure doesn't spike the way it often does during intense exercise. Instead, circulation spreads evenly through your working muscles and vital organs alike. Hard cardio, by contrast, tends to push your sympathetic system into full dominance. Adrenaline surges. Your body prepares for urgent, all-out output. That's genuinely useful in short doses. It's a critical part of performance training. But in midlife, when recovery naturally slows down, repeated spikes like this can leave your nervous system activated long after the workout itself has ended.
This is why some people notice their resting heart rate stays elevated for hours after a hard session. It's why sleep sometimes feels lighter on training nights. Your body is struggling to find its way back to restoration. Walking sends an entirely different signal because the effort stays manageable throughout. Your parasympathetic system stays engaged even while your heart beats faster than its resting pace. Your heart works, but it works efficiently. Your blood vessels stay responsive instead of clamping down defensively. Circulation stays smooth instead of turning forceful. This actually explains something strange that experienced runners in their 40s often report: feeling unusually fatigued despite genuinely strong fitness. Their performance capacity is intact, but their regulatory system struggles to settle after intense sessions. Their heart is fully capable. It's their nervous system that keeps the body braced in alertness far longer than it actually needs to be. Now think about a moment almost everyone overlooks completely: the hour right after a genuinely stressful day. Deadlines, tension, emotional pressure building quietly all day long, elevating stress hormones without you even noticing it happening. If you add intense cardio directly on top of that state, you're handing your body yet another powerful activation signal, right when it's already overloaded.
Walking does the opposite. It actually helps resolve the existing load. That steady, rhythmic movement helps your nervous system lower adrenaline gradually, instead of piling more on top of it. Even something as simple as a short walk after a meal has real effects. Blood is already circulating to support digestion in that window. Gentle movement helps distribute that blood flow without triggering abrupt pressure changes, quietly supporting your vascular responsiveness in the background. Between the 3rd and 10th minute of a walk, your body makes a full transition from preparing for movement to actually stabilizing it. Your heart beats regularly. Your breathing stays controlled. Circulation finds genuine balance. And instead of testing how much strain your system can withstand, walking is quietly teaching your body how smoothly that system can actually operate. Past the 10-minute mark, something interesting happens. Repetition starts to matter more than effort. Every single step repeats the same pattern: expansion, relaxation, expansion, relaxation, inside your blood vessels. Your heart keeps pumping, but now it's pumping into a system offering less and less resistance. Instead of training your heart to simply tolerate pressure, your body is practicing pure efficiency. Cadence matters here more than people realize. A pace that still allows for comfortable conversation keeps your nervous system balanced and steady. But if the pace pushes hard enough to strain your breathing, that sympathetic response rises right back up, and the protective effect quietly weakens. The goal was never to test your limits, it's to maintain steady, sustainable circulation. Over time, your heart genuinely learns something remarkable. It doesn't need to react strongly to mild activity anymore. Your vessels learn to widen more easily, almost automatically. Together, they lower your daily cardiovascular load, not just during the walk itself, but across your entire day. This is where real cardiac protection actually develops. Your heart is still working, sure, but now every single contraction meets cooperation from the vascular system around it, instead of resistance. And when this happens consistently, it lowers the mechanical demand on your heart throughout the entire day, not just during those 30 minutes of walking. Over weeks and months, clinicians start measuring changes that are impossible to ignore.
Resting heart rate gradually declines because every single beat becomes more efficient than it used to be. Heart rate recovery improves too. After activity stops, your heart returns to baseline noticeably faster. And that ability to slow down efficiently, it's one of the strongest known indicators of genuine cardiovascular resilience. Systolic blood pressure often decreases modestly as vessel responsiveness improves. Your arteries don't stay permanently expanded, but they regain flexibility, and they react appropriately whenever they're actually needed. Walking endurance increases as well, and people notice it in everyday life. They can move longer distances without the fatigue that used to stop them, not because they trained themselves to push harder, but because circulation itself is distributing oxygen more smoothly through the entire body. One measurement doctors watch especially closely is recovery heart rate. A faster recovery suggests your nervous system can shift from activity back to rest without unnecessary delay. And that shift directly protects your heart by limiting how long it stays under elevated demand. Walking practices this exact transition over and over every single time you do it. The real training effect here was never about performance capacity. It was always about stability. Instead of asking how fast your heart can beat, walking quietly teaches your body something far more valuable: how gracefully your heart can accelerate, and just as importantly, how gracefully it can come back down. After 30 minutes, your body has rehearsed efficient circulation dozens of times over, and across months, that rehearsal becomes your new default pattern, meaning even ordinary daily activities start requiring noticeably less effort from your heart. When researchers began comparing different forms of activity across midlife populations, several results genuinely surprised even the clinicians running the studies.
The first finding, moderate, consistent walking significantly reduced cardiovascular event risk in sedentary adults, even when total exercise intensity stayed relatively low. The explanation wasn't superior conditioning, it was repeated regulation. The heart simply experienced fewer sudden pressure demands scattered across the day. The second finding involved stress hormones directly. High-intensity cardio is genuinely beneficial in many contexts, nobody's disputing that. But performed frequently without adequate recovery, it can keep adrenaline and cortisol elevated for extended periods. Younger bodies clear these signals quickly and efficiently. After 40, that clearance process slows down, and if activation signals keep arriving daily without balancing recovery, the nervous system can stay slightly overactivated, almost permanently on edge. Walking, by contrast, gently engages the system while simultaneously allowing restoration to happen at the very same time. A third finding concerned arterial compliance, how well your blood vessels expand and contract with every single heartbeat. Over years, that flexibility can be lost, but regular, moderate movement improves this responsiveness far more consistently than occasional intense exercise, simply because the stimulus arrives often and without extreme pressure spikes attached to it. The vessels practice widening again and again, quietly preserving their elasticity in the process. And then there was a fourth surprise, one that connected sleep directly to heart health. Daily walking improves both sleep depth and sleep regularity. And sleep isn't just rest for your mind, it's genuine recovery time for your entire cardiovascular system. During deeper stages of sleep, heart rate and blood pressure fall, allowing critical repair processes to actually take place. When sleep improves, cardiac risk decreases too, indirectly but very meaningfully.
Together, these four findings point toward one unmistakable pattern. Your heart thrives in an environment of predictable movement paired with reliable recovery. Real protection comes from lowering daily stress on your circulation, not from repeatedly testing your maximum output over and over, hoping for a different result. Of course, safety still matters here, always. If you have prior heart conditions, start with shorter durations and build distance gradually over time. Joint discomfort might call for softer surfaces or a slower pace, and any dizziness, unusual chest pressure, or shortness of breath beyond mild exertion should prompt you to stop immediately and seek medical guidance. Walking is gentle, but it's still a genuine physiological activity, one that asks your body to adapt. Approached patiently, it becomes a training method built on repetition, not force. Your body learns stability from regular, repeated movement. Instead of constantly preparing for emergency effort, it starts preparing for steady, sustainable living. And that single shift reduces the burden placed on your heart every single day, whether you're exercising or not. So let's return to where we started. If you could pause time and look inside your heart during exercise, would it appear trained or quietly strained? The honest answer now has less to do with the raw strength of your heart muscle and everything to do with the conditions surrounding it. Your heart never operates alone. It works inside a vast network of vessels and regulatory signals that ultimately determine how difficult every single beat has to be. After 40, protection comes less from maximizing your output and more from minimizing unnecessary load. When movement stays predictable and moderate, your vessels cooperate and your nervous system learns to balance effort with genuine recovery. Your heart still beats faster during activity, but it stops fighting resistance to get there. When your body lives in constant intensity, your heart learns to respond with urgency as its default, and urgency absolutely has its place. But living inside that pattern every single day adds up to real cumulative demand over time. Here's the deeper truth underneath all of this. Your body adapts to exactly what you repeatedly ask of it. Repeated intense sessions ask your body to constantly prepare for emergencies. Repeated walking asks your body to simply circulate efficiently, day after day. Both forms of movement genuinely have value, but they serve entirely different roles in your life. Walking becomes the foundation because it teaches your entire system how to operate smoothly most of the time. Real protection isn't built only by pushing your heart harder. It's built quietly and patiently by making every single beat a little easier than the one before. Over months, that difference shows up clearly in your resting heart rate, in how quickly you recover, in your overall stability. Your heart doesn't need to constantly prove its strength. What it actually needs is a supportive environment to work within. So here's the question worth sitting with. What surprised you most in all of this? That gentle movement could genuinely influence your blood vessels? That recovery might matter more than intensity as you age? Or that efficiency, quietly and consistently, might protect your heart more than raw effort ever could?